Welcome back to Adam Tech Tips, and I'm going to show you this. So what I did is I just pressed G. I have rotated the gravity to minus Y on these walls, not on that floor default anymore. And we can walk freely here. The movement is very nice. I can rotate the mouse and it walks according to where we look. We move forward, we move left, we move right, we move backwards. All of it are really good. For a little bit of background, I've been in the tutorial hunting for these past few days, and most of them recommending us to use C++ code. Mainly it points to this page, so Unreal Engine Custom Gravity in UE 5.4. This tutorial is very good if you can do C++ and if you have a little bit of time to install Visual Studio and generate and compile the code. And I also found this page from this video from this guy named ProjProd. I really recommended this tutorial, but it's still using C++. And I achieve all of this using just blueprints, so just these code. So let's go on to making this. And of course, first thing first, we just need to duplicate this BB third person character, name it however you like. I'm going to name this the BBTPC gravity 2 because I made it. Let's create our custom gravity here. Set gravity direction and split struct pin. Let's set it on the minus Y. Let's trigger it using debug key G. Hit compile and then set our gravity character to the default bound class, and we press play, press G, and we have changed the gravity. And the problem is that the camera is still anchored to the previous gravity or the default gravity, which is minus Z. And we will fix that. I tried a bunch of things before I found this solution. I tried like double camera boom, I tried limiting the yaw, pitch and roll, I tried every other combination of pound control rotation and whatnot, and I did try manipulating the X and Y axis into this value, into this value. I tried so many things, but it just not succeed. And I found that we need to make our whole new camera system. So I'm just going to grab the input action look here, and we going to need a bunch of new things to host our new camera system. So I'm going to use arrow, and I'm going to name the first arrow as the cam pivot gravity, and this first pivot is going to be anchored into the gravity. I'm going to move this up, and we need the second pivot as the camera pivot LR or left right. So this pivot is going to be pointing where we want to move for the characters. Since it's rotating in the blue axis, the Z axis, I'm going to color it blue. And then let's duplicate this again, and I'm going to need another pivot called PUD up and down. Since it's going to move at this axis, in this green axis, I'm going to color it green like that. And we are ready to host our new camera. We just move it there and we zero out the translation. And on the event graph, we can easily manipulate this using our input action look. So let's just grab cam pivot LR and let's add relative rotation, split struct pin, input action X. It's going to be on the Z axis. And if we hit compile, by the way, make sure that our camera boom is inheriting all pitch, yaw, and roll and doesn't have any pound control rotation. And if we hit play, we are successfully recreating the left and right movement from our mouse to that arrow pivots. And I want to unhide this so we know we are pointing at. Let's continue cam pivot UD. And on this part, I'm using a sequence, and we will told this one to have the Y value onto the pitch. But I'm going to multiply this into -1 because I want to invert it. Invert it or not is your preference. And if we hit compile and save, we are now completely recreated our camera movement. But there's just one problem. If I'm pressing W, it's not where should we walk. That is all because when we are walking to the right, the characters rotate to the right, but our camera follows. So our right vector are on this axis again, and when we press right, it's rotated again. So it's all rotated, rotated, and rotated. That means we need some individuality between the cam pivot gravity and capsule components. And we are going to anchor this to the gravity anyway. And how to make this cam pivot gravity, the black pivot is individual from our capsule component, is just making it absolute rotation. So grab our cam pivot gravity, set absolute rotation, and we hit check mark on that. We hit compile, save, and if we press play, now our rotation not going to influence, so our camera are not going to influence the characters again, but somehow it's still wrong because if I press W, it's walking towards that. If I'm pressing S, it's still working towards that. So now the character is based on where we first have this pointed at. I'm pressing W, now it's going there. If I rotate this here, I'm pressing W, it's going to walk there. And of course, we have to change where we move our input. So rather than getting from control rotation again, we are not using the control rotation anyway. We can just grab our cam pivot LR. Remember that the blue axis is going to tell us where to go. So cam pivot LR, we can just get right vector. And for this one, we just can get forward vector. And if we hit compile, now we can freely move our character and it's working really well. It's like the third person template doesn't got edited at all. But of course, when we are pressing G, we are now stuck in this axis again. This is because see that the black axis is not changes at all. We need to change that when we change our gravity. And how to rotate our new camera pivot to the new gravity rather than keeping the old gravity direction is actually pretty simple. I'm just going to drag this here for more space, and I'm going to retrieve the gravity direction again by using get gravity direction and then rotate our cam pivot gravity. So rotate set world rotation, sorry. So this set world rotation, and just for a basic info, gravity direction is not straight up rotation, can be break or converted. Gravity direction means something like this, like if the x is 0, y is -1, and z is 0, that means the gravity direction or the vector direction is pointing on the y minus axis. And if it's -1 on the z axis, that means it's gravity default, just like on the floor, it's -z. And how we can convert this is basically just get a node called make rotation from axis. There's another version called make rotation from z, and we can just plug this in, but actually not, because the z-axis is actually up axis, so we need to negate that. So let's multiply into a float of -1 like that, and we can just use even tick. We can hook up a whole gravity calculation here after the tick, and if we press play, press G, and we are now successfully recreated our gravity player. But there's one thing missing, because if we press G, so right now I'm looking at the wall, but if I press G, it's now rotated to the left. The camera rotated to the left. What you use is this one. So make rotation from axis. Just connect this here into our new rotation, and let's retrieve the cam pivot gravity again and get the forward vector and get the right vector, connect it, and this essentially asks, hey, what's the forward and right vector currently, and we modify the up vector as the new world rotation. And when we use this and we're pressing G, and it's fixed, it's complete, and we can move freely. And we have completed our new custom gravity movement without C++ at all. That's so cool. So I want to recap a bit and maybe fix some things just for the sake of it. I'm going to tidy this up, get current forward and right vector, get up vector from gravity direction. This is going to be anchor cam pivot to gravity. And this part, let's add some guardrails. We can avoid some glitches within the camera. Let's just set a relative rotation and split stroke pin, and we get a relative rotation, split stroke spin, and this way we are going to be zeroing out any other axis. And one more time for our up and down pivot, and we can just easily zero out like this. I want to limit how we look up and down. Even in the viewport, we have limits or where we look up and look down. So how to do this is basically just clamp float minus is just 89 just before the 90 value, so 89 on the minus and 89 on the plus axis, and this way we will limit our look up and down. And then one more thing, of course, this character already have the anim blueprint modified. If you go to the anim blueprint, we need to use vector length rather than vector length xy. This is the default. It's going to only account x and y axis, but when we are moving up to the sky, we need this vector length that account all of the axis. And that's it. Finally, this tutorial complete. See you the next time. See you in the next videos, in the next content. Like the video, subscribe, and thank you for watching.